Well, good morning and welcome, everybody. Welcome to this ITIL4 update webinar. As is the norm, I can sort of see people just connecting in just at 9:30. That's absolutely fine. So I'll just allow people to connect in so that you can all take advantage of this briefing today. I'm always pleased to see that we get lots of people sign up for these events, people that we're very familiar with. I can see some familiar names on there and some people who are relatively new to us. So all of you are welcome. Welcome back if you've been on these events before. Welcome if this is your first time. You've probably realised that your microphones and video cameras are all switched off for the way that we run these sessions, certainly with the numbers that are connecting in, just to sort of avoid noise pollution and to make sure that that I can be heard, really, because it's my updates that I guess you guys are mostly interested in. So the idea is that if you do need to communicate with me, more than happy for you to do so. Use the chat facility to do that. I'm going to give you plenty of time at the end of the session to ask any questions that you've got, but if you wanted to post a question into the chat window, or there is a Q&A section as well, which if you're used to using that, then I can review that and see what questions have been posted, but we'll have time to chat at the end. I should let you know that I am recording today's session, and for everybody that's signed up for this event, I will be sending you an email after the event with copies of my slides and a copy of the recording, all being well. And the recording is taking place at the moment, so all should be good for that. A bit of formal introduction. So it says on the slide there, my contact details are there. My name's Adam Saul, the Director of Professional Services at Sysop. I'll give a bit more information about myself shortly, but as I say, if there's anything that you want to follow up from today's discussions, then please do feel free to get in contact with me. I'm sure most of you have signed up off the back of the emails that we send out from time to time. So yeah, you've probably got my details anyway. But yeah, it's my pleasure today to give you the latest from an ITIL4 perspective. There's been some significant developments over the last 6 to 12 months, which it's always good to bring to the surface. So let's move forwards and do that. But before I do, I always just sort of like to do just a bit of a flash poll just to get you guys engaged initially. So I'm just going to send out a couple of poll questions. The first one, which I've just launched, I'm just interested to know what ITIL qualifications you currently hold. So hopefully you should be able to see that poll pop up. And you can select more than one, because I know that some of you may span across lots of different ones. So if you can do that, I can sort of get a view of the training that you've all had. Great, I can see that we're getting some good responses in. Still getting responses in, but it's around 38% of you who have already done ITIL4 Foundation. So you've got a reasonable understanding of ITIL4, so that's good. A good chunk of you have got 32% ITIL qualifications from a previous version of ITIL. Been around for such a long time that I sometimes forget that somebody might have achieved their ITIL Foundation certificate 20 years ago or something along those lines. Okay, well, that's interesting. So 5% of you have got no ITIL qualifications at all, 39% ITIL4 Foundation, 17% ITIL4 Managing Professional, 2% ITIL4 Strategic Leader, 7% of you have got any advanced ITIL4 module, and 32% from previous versions. Okay, thank you for that. That's good to know what we're working with. And some of you may have sort of looked at the agenda for today. So I'm just sort of going to use this ranking topics in order. I've not actually used this facility before, so I wanted to just sort of see how it goes. So broadly speaking, we're going to cover 4 major areas today: updates to the ITIL4 qualification scheme, options for recertification, ITIL maturity assessments. We're going to take you through one of our new practical workshops. So I'd just like you to sort of use this to rank these in order of your level of interest, really. Let's sort of see what information we get off the back of that. Submit it myself because it's asking me to. That gives me bit of a flavour, so I can see people are responding. Okay. So definitely updates to the ITIL4 qualification scheme seems to be top of everybody's list. Options for recertification next, and then we've got ITIL maturity assessment and practical workshops, which kind of keeps jumping around. So I guess those are sort of secondary to you. Okay, that's fine. Good stuff. Well, that probably aligns with the detail that I'm giving you, actually, mostly on the ITIL qualification scheme. We'll go into recertification and look at maturity assessment and the practical workshop as well. Brilliant, thank you. So now that you've used that poll, you've given some interaction, then as I say, feel free to use the ITIL chat facility as you so wish, and I'll pick up on questions perhaps as I go, but certainly I'll do a scan through at the end to pick out anything that we need to go through. Okay, let's move things on. So some of you are probably very much well aware of Sysop. Some of you I might be completely new to you, so very briefly, been around for a long time, specialising in the area of IT service management, and ITIL is the core of what we do, which is why a lot of our briefings and things and our portfolio is mostly aligned to ITIL and service management, and we specialise in those kind of areas because through that specialism we feel that we add more value to our clients through the services that we provide, whether it's training or a professional services approach. I'm our ITIL4 products lead. There's an image of me there on the slide, which I always think needs updating, so I'll come up with something better next time, maybe. Got over 20 years varied IT experience, starting off in sort of software development back in the old mainframe environments, all the way through to providing installation support services for storage area networks, through service management consultancy and training, really, which is obviously where I'm primarily sat now. So I've been through the ITIL journey from version 2 at manager's level, version 3 expert, and now ITIL4 managing professional, as well as some of the other things. And hopefully I've certainly get feedback to say I'm particularly passionate about IT service management and the value that some of these qualifications can bring. So hopefully that will come across as we go through the session today. Okay, well, we've just done the qualifications poll, so I don't need to worry about that. So looking at today's agenda then, so as I say, aligns with those things that we've just asked you about. So the ITIL qualification scheme, where we're going to just sort of have a bit of a whistle-stop tour through some of the recent developments in that particular area, looking at additional specialist modules. These ITIL Practice modules, which are relatively new. Only one of those is currently available, but I'll share that when we get there. Recertification, which has caused a lot of confusion out there. Lots of questions I've been fielding over the last few months about what the recertification options are. What does it actually mean? So I'll clarify what recertification is and go into that information in terms of giving you what you need to best prepare yourself and your colleagues to take that forward. We'll have a brief look at the ITIL overview concept, moving on to the ITIL maturity assessment, and specifically I'm going to look at the demonstrating IT value workshop, all based around value from IT service management ultimately. And then, as I said, you guys will get the opportunity to give us a little bit of feedback, and I'll happy to host a Q&A and see what questions you might have. So hopefully I'll answer most of those through the session anyway, but I'm always glad to field some at the end. Okay then, so let's move on and look at the ITIL4 qualification scheme. And the latest version of the qualification scheme looks like this. So this might be completely new to some of you. Obviously, the ITIL Foundation has been around. I think ITIL Foundation was launched at the start of 2019, which I still find myself talking about ITIL4 as if it's new, but we're now sort of 4 years old. I think that the whole COVID pandemic really sort of has redefined time, hasn't it? But yeah, it has been around for 4 years now, and it's starting to get well embedded into what organisations are doing. Starting to see movement, evolving ITIL version 3 in practice into ITIL 4. So the bits and pieces that we're really going to sort of cover off today, well, I suppose it's probably what we're not really going to focus on is managing professional and strategic leader. These are qualifications which have been around from the very early days of ITIL 4, where the strategic leader qualification is a combination of obviously the foundation as a prerequisite, or managing professional transition if some of you have been down that particular path, and then digital and IT strategy and direct plan and improve are the two modules which would contribute towards this qualification. You can see direct plan and improve also contributes towards the managing professional qualification, so it kind of ticks boxes for both of those. But managing professional also includes the high velocity IT modules, drive stakeholder value, and create, deliver, and support. So there's 4 modules that you would need in order to become a managing professional. And then it's these practice manager qualification, which is the newest, I would suggest. And a practice is a little bit more complicated, but in order to become a practice manager, the first 2 steps are fairly straightforward, having an ITIL foundation and the create, deliver, and support module. But the idea is that PeopleCert, who own the ITIL scheme, are launching individual one-day practice workshops, of which these blue boxes are all there to represent. So to give you an example, on this top level of monitor, support, and fulfill, we've got service desk, incident management, problem management, service request management, and monitoring and event management. So the idea is that as a training provider, we can offer the one-day modules by themselves, or we can combine them together as we see fit. But there will be specific PeopleCert qualifications where this white bit of text, monitor, support, and fulfill, is a 3-day module where you will cover all 5 of these practices. So yeah, we're going to be offering all of these things, and so monitor, support, and fulfill is one of the modules. Plan, implement, and control, which is coming down the line in July, I think, includes change enablement, release management, service configuration management, deployment management, and IT asset management. And then later on in the year, we've got collaborate, assure, and improve, which includes continual improvement, service level management, relationship management, to work out that one then, information security management, and supplier management. So I'll tell you more about certainly the monitor, support, and fulfill one in a second. But ultimately, in order to become a practice manager, you need foundation, you need create, deliver, and support as a module, and you'll need 5 of these one-day modules or 1 of the 3-day ones. So you can have 5 modules from any of these, any mix, or you can just have a 3-day module which groups together the related practices, if you like. And then there's also these extension modules, which are sort of standalone qualifications in their own right, really. This is kind of deliberate. IT asset management and business relationship management. You can sort of see the foundation sort of borders onto those modules, because that you do need a foundation certificate before you go on and complete those specialist modules. I'll tell you more about those shortly. Whereas sustainability in digital and IT and acquiring and managing cloud services, they're courses where you don't actually need a foundation certificate for. So you just sort of dive into those specialist areas as a whole. So yeah, I'm going to go into these elements in a bit more detail, but just to sort of cover everything off that's on this slide. There's this ITIL Master that sits along the top, which very recently I've sort of seen the announcement in terms of how they're going to progress forward with ITIL Master. Previously, some of you may be aware that the ITIL Master qualification was seen as sort of a dissertation type exercise where you sort of had to submit some sort of document based on your experience demonstrating service management in practice. But it's much more straightforward these days, and it is as it looks on this slide, that if you have the ITIL Practice Manager qualification and the Managing Professional qualification and the Strategic Leader qualification, then you would become an ITIL Master. So it's all exam led now. So it doesn't mean that you have to do all of these modules, because not all of them contribute towards this, but if you achieve those 3 qualifications, then you would indeed become an ITIL Master, which I suppose is in traditional, going back to ITIL version 3, is the ITIL Expert equivalent, but there's perhaps more to it than there used to be. Okay, so I'm sure some of you will have a view of where you want to be or where you sit on this diagram. You might have some specific questions, so feel free to ask them as we go. So I'm just going to go into these modules in a little bit more detail, just to bring them to life for you. The first sort of extension modules that came about were these two that were listed on this slide here: acquiring and managing cloud services, and sustainability in digital and IT. Two specialist areas where I think that the core publications for ITIL4, when they were first released, didn't really cover these areas. So I think it was right that they sort of explored them as specialist modules. And acquiring and managing cloud services, of course, I'm sure you're all aware, we're all from the IT industry. We're recognising our dependence on cloud services provided by a third party. So how we actually manage that in a service management environment is tricky, and of course this particular guidance is there to help in that particular area. So it provides a vendor neutral, user-centric guidance on developing a practical understanding on how cloud procurement and technology can integrate with and support broader business strategy and functions. So looking at that strategically and identifying how best to optimize our approaches in those areas. Sustainability is a massive topic, really, and it's right that we sort of it's given special attention in the ITIL framework. So the sustainability in digital and IT module is there to explore how service organisations may address those sustainability challenges, really looking at how we can align our digital and IT strategy to take on board our commitments to sustainability and making sure that we're deploying the right approaches in alignment with the various service management concepts like the value chain and our ITIL practices. So two interesting specific modules. This gives you a view of what the sort of the target audience is there on the slide. They're both 3-day courses. Slight difference in terms of the assessment criteria for each of these courses. The acquiring and managing cloud services is a straightforward 40-question multiple choice exam, whereas the sustainability in digital IT, there is an exam, a multiple choice exam, but there's also in-course practical assignments for you to sort of demonstrate your knowledge and understanding from the training aligned to sustainability as well. So that gets the in-course assessment gets marked by the trainer, so you know how well you've performed against those assessments before you go on and sit the actual exam itself. So I say those two have been around for a while. These next two modules have been introduced this year, and they're kind of they're like the practice modules, which we're going to talk about shortly, but they spend a bit more time going into these very specific focused areas. So IT asset management, such a big area, as I'm sure you'll understand. Sort of managing software licenses is an absolute minefield. Looking at asset trails of our hardware assets and all of those things is quite key. So there's a 3-day course dedicated to looking at IT asset management and all the related areas that fit within that. And similarly for business relationship management, I mean, in ITIL, we had business relationship management in previous versions of ITIL as a dedicated process. In ITIL4, we have relationship management and business analysis. So this course kind of brings together those two elements to make sure that interface between IT and the business is as it should be, making sure that we're identifying those key relationships between the service provider and the service consumer, the customer, and making sure that those relationships are considered and optimized as best they can, really. So both IT asset management and business relationship management do have a prerequisite of either the foundation certificate or some of you may have the managing professional transition module, that will serve as a prerequisite for this course as well. Again, target audience is listed there for both of those. Both of these are 3-day modules and fairly straightforward. A multiple choice exam at the end of it, 90 minutes, 40 questions, and we need to secure 65% to pass. So as you can see, it's obviously PeopleCert's intention to develop modules as they see fit, which kind of supplements ITIL. They sort of build on some of the guidance from the core areas and deep dive into them through some specific modules. So I think you can expect to see more of these as the years unfold. There's nothing that I'm aware of in the upcoming roadmap for this year, but possibly next year, then they might dive into other specific areas in the same way that they have here. Moving on to the ITIL Practice Manager or Practitioner qualifications. Literally, only in preparing this module, this presentation this week, I've sort of picked up on the reintroduction of this term practitioner. And some of you might recall, it's certainly in ITIL version 2, we had the specialist practitioner modules where you'd have an incident management practitioner or a service level management practitioner, for example. Well, they sort of picked up on that same terminology, but these are more one-day focused practice modules. So there are 34 practices in ITIL4, and every single one of those practices comes with its own practice guide, which is available through the MyAxelos subscription service, which I'm going to talk about shortly anyway. So 34 guides, very useful content, which is largely being overlooked by the IT industry and the service management profession. So this is one way of sort of bringing all of that really good practical guidance to life. So there's going to be eventually, the idea is that there will be a practitioner module, a one-day course for all 34 practices. But of course, it takes time to get there. So they've sort of launched with the areas that are perhaps of most of interest. And funnily enough, these just happen to be the practices that are covered on the foundation course. So it kind of demonstrates that they see them as being the core modules. So each practice will become a one-day practitioner module. Currently, there are 5 of them available in terms of these ones categorized in the monitor, support and fulfill. So service desk, incident management, problem management, service request management, and monitoring and event management. Later on in the year, we will have all of these modules. So change enablement, release, service configuration, deployment, IT asset management. That's what's covered in the plan, implement and control, and continual improvement, service level management, relationship management, information security management, supplier management. Again, individual practitioner modules in their own right, but all combined together as a 3-day module to create the collaborate, assure and improve. So 3-day courses will combine 5 practices as a single qualification. In order to become an ITIL Practice Manager as a qualification, then you would need foundation, create, deliver and support module, and then either 5 individual practitioner modules or one of these 3-day practice manager courses. The 3-day courses are available as public and private outings. So what I mean by that is, as a training provider, we can come to you to provide all of this training, or we will have public dates where we will be bringing in people from different organizations, so you can just book a place onto those events. For now, we're thinking that the one-day modules we're only going to make available as private events. We don't want to dilute the audience too much across our public outings, but it might be something that we consider in the future in terms of adding them as a public date. So we see most people being interested in the 3-day modules, but organizations might have a specific need that says, can you come in and talk to our service desk guys about the service desk practice perhaps, or maybe combine service desk with incident management and make it a 2-day course, and sort of see that might be the case as well. So we'll see how it evolves, but that's our initial intention. In terms of key dates, the monitor, support and fulfill module is available now. Plan, implement and control will be available from July, and collaborate, assure and improve will be available from September. So as I've already said, those 3-day modules and the associated 1-day practitioner modules, which are there to support them, by the end of this year, all of those will be available to you. And I actually think that this is a significant step in the right direction for me. One of the criticisms that I've sort of been gauging from our client base when we've been looking at ITIL4 and the modules, quite often the view is that there isn't enough detail in the practices, which is where most people sort of see the value from ITIL4. So I'm a big fan of this introduction of this approach, because I think that this is the one that that most organisations are going to consider to be more relatable to the things that they do, more practical, and of more interest to a wider pool of individuals. So it'd be interesting to see what your views are of this when I get to the sort of the feedback section overall. So that's the practice manager. And just a sort of a bit of a deep dive into the content of each of the available monitor, support and fulfill practitioner modules at the moment. So given that we have a dedicated service desk practice these days, so it often causes confusion on my training courses that you sort of think, well, we have the service desk practice, but we have separate incident management practice. So are we saying that the service desk doesn't do incident management? Well, no, we're not. But what we're saying is by having a service desk practice, we're actually a dedicated service desk practice. We can be just focused on understanding users' needs, being there to capture the demand for incidents and service requests and deal with them accordingly. So on this particular practitioner module for the service desk, then that's exactly what we'll be looking at. Understanding that communication, looking at the channels of access for the service desk, looking at the service desk metrics, the practice success factors is what ITIL defines as a way of defining how well are we operating in this particular area. So looking at the practice success factors for the service desk and understanding the metrics that we could use as a means to measure our performance in those particular areas. So all of those elements will be covered on that one-day module. The incident management practitioner course. So now we're just looking into how we go about managing incidents, coordinating our response to incidents, looking at how we handle incidents generally, but perhaps a separate procedure for major incidents, looking at different techniques and models that we can use to help us in this area of incident management, and looking at how we can improve on the incident management area is broadly what we would cover across the incident management practitioner module. From a problem management perspective, so looking at the three phases of problem management, really, in terms of how we go about identifying problems, looking at how we control problems and looking at how we control our errors, optimizing our approach in this way, ultimately to increase the reliability of IT services, being more proactive, looking at how we can pick up on things before end users are impacted, and reducing technical debt. I mean, technical debt is all about the cost to us as an organisation for every single time we experience something for which we perhaps have a workaround for, but we haven't come up with a permanent fix yet. So looking at how we can reduce that technical debt and ultimately looking to introduce ways that we can look to move things forward from a problem management perspective in terms of resolving problems if it's justified for us to do just that. So all of that stuff would be on the problem management practitioner module. From a service request management point of view, again, just making that distinction, from a service desk point of view, service requests are raised at the service desk, but we need to make sure that we're managing service requests in the most appropriate way. And service request management is largely all about how we can use effective processes and procedures to speed up our fulfillment times, going through the initiation, the approval and the fulfillment of service requests, and looking at how we could streamline our approaches to that to actually fulfill those service requests in a more timely manner, really. So exploring things like workflows and procedures and looking at how automation can help in this area would absolutely be covered as part of the service request management practitioner module. And then last but not least, monitoring and event management. So of course, this kind of organically happens these days in most IT organizations, that we're using the systems to tell us of issues so we can pick up on them early. So understanding the interfaces with incident management and problem management in this particular area, optimizing the approaches in terms of monitoring and making sure that that we're exploring an effective approach overall. And as I mentioned, I kind of mentioned this for the service desk, but for all of these practices, we're going to be looking at the key practice success factors on each of these modules for each practitioner module, to identify what good looks like and have some supporting KPIs and metrics to demonstrate how well we're performing in those areas overall. So all of those things would contribute to an effective approach to each practice guide. And just to sort of cover all of these things, because this is relevant for every single one of these modules. The updated ITIL4 maturity model, which I'm going to tell you about earlier, sorry, I'm going to tell you about later on the session, is there to give us a more aligned approach in terms of the maturity of our processes. Therefore, it makes perfect sense that as we go through each of these individual practice modules, that we're looking at maturity levels to identify what does a level 1 maturity level look like for service desk, what does a level 2 one look like, and all of those elements are covered on these modules as well. So lots of value into these modules, and as I've already said, I'm a big fan of these because I think it's a huge step forward. I think they're much more practical and relatable, and I think that our clients are definitely going to realise significant value from these particular modules, whether it's through the individual one-day modules or the combined 3-day course. ITIL Master I've sort of already talked about. So ITIL Master is the highest level of achievement in the ITIL qualification scheme. It used to be much more complicated than this, but now it's reasonably straightforward. To achieve ITIL Master, a candidate must hold the Practice Manager qualification, a Managing Professional qualification, and a Strategic Leader. So some of you might be Managing Professional transition candidates, so you ultimately need to do the digital and IT support module in order to become a strategic leader, and you would need to go and do 5 of the practitioner modules, and then with those modules, in addition to your managing professional transition, you would become an ITIL master as well. Okay, so again, you might have questions to ask me about the qualification scheme and how it relates to you or your colleagues. I'm more than happy to field those at the end of the session. Okay, on to recertification then. So I think this is sort of bad news. It's well intended in some areas. Ultimately, PeopleCert have announced at the start of the year that all ITIL qualifications and Prince 2 and MSP qualifications, all part of their best practice portfolio. Any qualification will expire after 3 years unless you take some sort of action. So I'm here today to sort of really share with you what that action could be for you if you are looking to keep your qualifications current. But I'm also trying to sort of dispel a few myths and sort of provide a bit of clarification on what this actually means overall. So it was at the turn of the year when they announced this. So every certification will expire after 3 years unless you do some things, which I'm going to talk about in a second. There has been a 6-month transition period. So those of you who achieved ITIL4 Foundation, for example, more than 3 years ago, you will find that your qualification hasn't expired yet. But if you haven't done anything else, then it will expire at the end of June, because they introduced this 6-month transition period to give you time to do that. So ultimately, we're talking about one more week before those things expire. So I'll talk to you about what it means if they expire in a second. But I'm going to take you through 3 routes in terms of how candidates can renew their certifications. I'm going to go into each of these in more detail than on this slide. So route 1, retake the exam before the renewal date. It says on the slide. Well, that's actually an old slide. So I put a comment on there. It doesn't actually have to be before the renewal date. So one of the frequently asked questions I get in this area is, well, what happens if my qualification expires? Well, the good news is that even an expired qualification will still serve as a valid prerequisite to go on and do an advanced module. So by that, I mean, if you've achieved the ITIL4 Foundation certificate and it expires, you don't have to then resit your foundation exam before you go on and do any of the advanced modules. By just sitting one of the advanced modules, it will reset the clock for, well, obviously that qualification will be valid for 3 years that you've just achieved, but it will reset the clock for your foundation one as well. Okay, so you don't necessarily have to. If it expires, what I'm trying to say is it's okay. It just means that your qualification won't be valid. It will be listed on the successful candidate register as having expired, but it will still contribute towards future modules. Okay. So you can retake the exam before or after the renewal date now. Route 2, collect and log professional development points. Well, this is going to take a bit of explaining, so I'll come to that in detail in a second. But this is all managed through the MyAxelos subscription service, where the idea is that you register relevant service management activities that you've done that could contribute towards this particular scheme. Each of those activities will contribute a varying amount of points, and the idea is that you are to accumulate 20 continual professional development points every year for a 3-year period, and that would then automatically extend any ITIL qualifications that you have to another 3 years. So you have to continue down that particular path. The third route is take further certifications before the renewal date. So I think this one's going to be much more popular than route 1. So instead of resitting the exam that you've already sat, it perhaps makes more sense, given that there is an allowance that that even though a qualification has expired for foundation, that it would still serve as a prerequisite to go on to do one of the advanced modules. Then I think looking at some of these new modules is perhaps a little bit more interesting. Certainly these practitioner modules, we've got some clients who are saying to us, oh, we've got lots of people whose foundation certificates are about to expire. Maybe you can come and deliver a service desk practitioner one-day course for them all, so that we can actually give them that additional knowledge in the specialist area that they operate in, but also reset the time for their foundation certificate as well. So those are things that we can consider. So yeah, the main point on that slide is that if you reset any ITIL qualification, the clock resets for any ones that you've done previously as well. So it's always 3 years from the most current qualification that you've started. Okay. And to be fair, these are one of the major reasons why people sort of introduced this particular concept. Yes, it's a way of generating more revenue, which I'm sure cynically lots of you will agree with, but it's making sure that people continue down that continual professional development journey, whether it's through official accredited training courses or whether it's just through keeping on top of industry developments and things, which means that your qualification is more relevant. So that's really the direction that they've been specifically looking at. So deep diving into some of these things, well, if you do want to look at retaking the original exam as the first route for recertification, before you do, please consider some of the things that I've already talked about. Any expired exam will remain on the successful candidate register. So the policy originally was that it would be removed. Now it is demonstrating that it will be still listed on there. It will just indicate that it is expired. So if you're trying to demonstrate to a future employer that you've achieved ITIL Foundation as a qualification, you will be able to do that through the successful candidate register. It will just indicate that it's expired. And in some ways, that's up to the employer then to decide whether they want an active current qualification or not. But it still will be of value, I think. The other thing, an expired ITIL4 qualification still meets the prerequisites for any advanced ITIL module. So yeah, you might want to go on and do a more advanced module rather than reset the exam. I think that's more sensible. And I'm going to talk about this final point in a lot more detail, but you can currently subscribe to MyAxilos' to PeopleCert's MyAxilos Resource Centre, a very useful resource library of lots of white papers and webinars and e-learning training. The fee for this is $9.99 per month. But the current promotion is that if you sign up for this MyAxilos annual subscription at £99 plus VAT before the end of the month, so you've only got a week to do this, it will automatically extend the expiration date by 3 years into 2026. We at Sysop are making a strong recommendation that people pursue this because it buys you more time, gives you more options, and actually it exposes you to this MyAxilos subscription scheme for you to identify whether it is of value or not. Because after all, it is this MyAxilos subscription scheme that you need to be registered towards to collate your continual professional development points, and it's through that scheme that you actually have access to those resources that contribute towards that as well. So yeah, I see that as a good, valuable first step to make sure that that you're in a better position to take things forward. So MyAxilos then. So now moving on to route 2, collecting these continual professional development points. So what is MyAxilos? So as I've described, it's an online content subscription service. Not just ITIL, it's aligned to other core best practices like Prince2 and MSP. And much of the things that I'm talking about in this area, whilst my focus and our focus today is talking about ITIL, these things relate to Prince2 and MSP as well. MyAxilos gives tools, resources, know-how in terms of the things that are listed on the slide. I'm not going to read them out, but publications, reports, white papers, tools, templates, and the access to community where you can share resources and register these things as contributing towards your continual professional development. So it's through this scheme where the CPD points are managed. And currently an active MyAxelos subscription is needed, and the costs are on the slide: £9.99 per month, or an annual subscription at £99 per year. Okay, or both plus VAT. So going back to this exclusive offer then, so this image is directly lifted from PeopleCert's website. So you can sign up for an annual subscription to MyAxelos to automatically receive an extension to your current ITIL qualifications, your Prince 2, your MSP, extends it out till 2026, gives you peace of mind, and you can then start adding your continual professional development points. But you must do this by the 1st of July 2023. And I've actually gone through these steps myself this week so that I can inform you on exactly what happens. So through the PeopleCert website, you sign up for the annual subscription. It asks you for, it says optional, but it asks you for your candidate number. So if you can get your PeopleCert candidate number from your PeopleCert account, it's an easier transition. You put that into the field, you sign up for this, and then within, I think mine happened within an hour or so, all of my certifications on my PeopleCert account were extended out to 2026. So it does literally say what it says on the tin. But we have had a few questions on this, so just to sort of further clarification on this. So because you are subscribing to an annual subscription, you're signing up for an annual subscription, then like it works for sort of Netflix or whatever, these things that you subscribe to, you are automatically buying into the next year as well. So if you're using a credit card, it will automatically take payment for the next annual subscription the following year. But as you would expect with these things, you are given notification of that, and you have the option to cancel your subscription if you are not seeing the value in it. Okay, so you can do that. And if you do cancel, then some people are concerned that does that mean that the clock gets pushed back? No, your qualification expiry dates will remain at 2026. But obviously, you won't have access to all of the resources that are available through this scheme. You won't be eligible to collect continual professional development points for future extensions, because the CPD option is all about accumulating 20 credits every year for 3 consecutive years. So if you cancel your MyAxelos subscription, you can't be contributing towards that CPD scheme, so that option will be taken away from you in the future. Okay, so hopefully that clarifies that. You need a minimum of 20 CPD points each year across and every year across 3 years for certification expiry dates to be extended by a further 3 years. And you apply for career professional development points through MyAxelos. And this next slide gives you a flavour of the things that contribute towards continual professional development points. And as if this isn't complicated enough, there are some additional rules that you need to be aware of here. So they're breaking down the 3 areas that would contribute towards these points into these things. Professional experience. So this is where you can actually apply for career professional development points through this scheme by just saying, well, I've been doing this, I've been working on this particular project. Say I've just I've been working in terms of introducing a new service management tool set, and I've been actively involved in that. So you could record that as an activity on the scheme, and it would contribute towards your continual professional development points. So you get 1 continual professional point for each activity. But even in that example of implementing a new service management tool set, you can perhaps break it down into additional activities, because you might say, well, that's the overall thing that we've been doing, but so I've redesigned our incident management process to fall in line with that. Well, that could be considered to be an activity. We've looked at reviewed problem management, so that could be considered to be an activity. So the professional experience isn't just about things that you've done. It might be that you've mentored a colleague to help them on their journey as well. So all of those things would contribute. You get 1 CPD point for each activity. When you're looking at the 20 continual professional development points you need every year, then you need to have a minimum of 5 points from this particular category. So it's truly trying to demonstrate the practical understanding of the things that you need. You could go through the professional development option. So this is where you're sort of registering any training that you've done, whether it's through PeopleCert, whether it's through organisations like Sysop, where it's not a PeopleCert accredited course. All of these things can contribute towards this, and you can go on and record this learning as well. So from a professional education point of view, one continual professional development point equates to 1 hour's worth of effort, so 1 hour's worth of training. The minimum entry is 30 minutes, which is 0.5 points. The maximum entry for a single training is 15 points, but actually the maximum overall is 15 points. So whether that's one single training or whether it's multiple ones doesn't really matter. But all of those things contribute, and you can apply through them from the scheme. And then there's the community. This is all about sort of trying to get more involvement from a wider community, getting people to produce white papers and share their experiences and host events and contribute towards discussion forums and all of those things. So if you can demonstrate 1 hour's worth of effort in that particular area, then that would equate to one continual professional development point as well. And again, a maximum of 15 points is available in this category. So we need 5 professional experience, and you can have more than 5. But once we've got those 5 from this category, then it's a case of trying to get the rest of our points from somewhere else. And as I say, a maximum of 15 is applicable for each of those other areas. So quite complicated, as I've suggested. I think it's one of those schemes that once you get into it, it becomes sort of easier. You get into that habit of registering the things that you've done, demonstrating those things that contribute overall. And the final one, taking further certifications. Well, this is just quite simply just a reminder of the ITIL qualification scheme. So by attending and sitting an exam and passing the exam in any of the modules that you haven't currently got, you would automatically extend the qualifications that you've got. So again, another option for you to continue your journey by going through these additional modules. Okay. Just wanted to talk briefly about an ITIL overview. Now, Sysop have been providing an ITIL overview for many, many years, a half-day version or a full-day version. The rug was pulled under us a little bit because training providers were not authorised to offer a ITIL overview training from the point of view that actually it should be that individuals, if they're interested in overview training, then perhaps they should be going on to do the foundation certificate overall. So that moved us to move away from an ITIL overview, where we specifically focus on ITIL, to offering an introduction to service management, which is available now and has been for a while. This is just demonstrating that through PeopleCert, we are now able to offer an official ITIL overview course, so half day or a full day course, which is all about an easy entrance into the world of service management, aimed at senior management to give them a flavour of what ITIL is, or pre-foundation employees, maybe as a sort of starting point to give them an introduction before they do the official training. Or maybe you've got staff that don't need a full 3-day module, and it's just a case of giving them an introduction. Well, that's what this is all about. So there's no exam. It is going to be included as part of the official ITIL qualification scheme, but it's just about attendance, really. So it's going to be trainer-led or available as an e-learning option available. So I just wanted to flag that this is going to be available officially again as an option, but this is available from Q3 this year. But an introduction to service management is available now. So if you do want a flavour of the things that I've just talked about, then come and talk to us and we can provide you with something now, which won't be perfectly aligned to this is what the ITIL framework is all about, but it'll give you a good introduction what service management is generally. Okay. ITIL maturity assessment. So just to sort of demonstrate that for years, again, we've been offering maturity assessment services where we can come in and benchmark all of your organisation in terms of how it aligns to ITIL, looking at the maturity of every aspect. Or we can sort of pick out a specialist area and say, okay, let's just zone in on one particular area. And we use this model that's available to us. It's based on the capability maturity model integration, or CMMI, where we look at 5 levels of maturity, which is listed there. Level 1 is the basic level of maturity, level 5 the highest level, and all those levels in between. So we can assess where you're currently at, and that serves as a real good platform to understand what your current baseline is. And it means that you can actually identify a platform for improvements off the back of that, because we do obviously incorporate recommendations for what you need to do to get to the next maturity level. And it also gives us the means for us to perhaps repeat this exercise sometime down the track. where we can actually look back and reflect on how you've moved from the previous baseline assessment to where you currently are now. So we can offer maturity assessments which are aligned to ITIL version 3 and 4. Most of what we're doing is aligned to version 3, funnily enough, because most clients say to us, well, what we've currently got is based on version 3. So perhaps it would make more sense for you to assess us against version 3 and put some recommendations on what it would take us to get to 4, rather than assessing us against 4. So it depends where you're at, but we can offer these services for you. And if this is of interest, then please do indicate to me after the session today. And just some benefits of this approach, really. I mean, I've kind of talked through all of these things. It certainly does help with continual improvement, looking at how we can take things forward, gives us peace of mind of where we're currently at, and it helps us demonstrate to our business where we're currently at, and the fact that we are offering quality IT service management overall. So I definitely recommend this approach for you. And just to sort of add in the latest workshop that we've added into our portfolio is this demonstrating value from IT service management workshop, which has been developed from one of our facilitators, who some of you might know quite well, Ian McDonald. Ian actually won the ITSMF award, the most recent one, the Thought Leadership Award, based on this white paper that he submitted, which is all about demonstrating value from IT service management. Those of you who have looked into ITIL4, you'll know that value is the core of everything these days. We've got the service value system, the service value chain, the focus on value guiding principle. We're looking for value, to create value for our stakeholders as an organisation. Well, how we actually go about doing that is not as straightforward as you might think. So we've produced this workshop, which is very much bringing that white paper to life. If customers don't see the value in what they do, then they would consider the service provided to be a cost. So we need to best understand how we can meet the value expectations that customers have and work with them to ensure that value is co-created, as what ITIL4 is trying to demonstrate to us. So this particular module is available as a bespoke event that we can come and run on your site or virtually for your people. But we do have our first public outing of this scheduled for the 3rd of November 2023. So you might want to take a look at that. Got some other bits and pieces. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm not going to go into this into too much detail, but there are some benefits of attending the session listed on the slide there, and a view of the workshop outline. So going through what it means to be concentrating on value over service, understanding what value means, what are the things that contribute towards value, how value is in the eye of the beholder, different perceptions of value, so how we can understand stakeholders' needs and make sure that we're translating the services that we're providing onto the value that they're likely to realise from those things. So if you think that's of interest, then please do sign up for the event in November, or maybe if you've got a few people interested, then come and talk to me about us providing this for you as a bespoke event. Okay, so just to sort of wrap things up then, sort of conscious that we're nearly at the end of our hour, and I want to give you a bit of time to ask me some questions. So today we've covered the ITIL4 qualification scheme, including new certifications, the practice manager, ITIL master, ITIL overview. Hopefully I've sort of shed a bit of more light on this recertification. Maybe one or two of you still have some questions in that area. I'm happy to field those now. At the ITIL maturity assessment, we've just covered and demonstrating value in IT service management, our new workshop, which is coming on later in the year. So hopefully all of those things are of interest for you. Okay, so a few things. Opportunity now for you to ask me some questions. I've got another poll just to sort of get an initial flash on the things that we've covered. So I'm just going to launch this poll. So the question is, which of the following are you likely to pursue for you or your team in the next 12 months? This is based on the ITIL qualification scheme and the things that we've covered. So if you can just submit a response to those things, then that would be really useful for me. Let's give you a few seconds to do that. I'll just put it in myself. Okay. So I'm getting some responses back for that. So thank you for that input. So I can sort of see ITIL4 Foundation is definitely of interest for many of you. looking at some of the advanced module certifications. Okay, well, after today's event, I'm going to send you an email with copies of the slides and a link to the video recording as well, which feel free to distribute to colleagues. Feel free to reply to me with any specific inquiries that you have about any of the things that we've talked about, and I can gladly send you the information that you need or set up a call to talk through those options. Not a problem at all. Okay, that's good. And just a nice sort of straightforward question. After what you have heard today, are you more or less likely to invest in ITIL training over the next 12 months? Just interested to see what your view is in relation to that. Whilst you're going through that, so the overriding majority seem to be going more likely, which is great news. That's one of the reasons why we offer this particular event. And the last thing with your interaction, I've just submitted into the chat there our feedback form from this session. So if you could take a few minutes just to sort of give me some an appraisal of this event. Obviously, we want to optimize these events for you, give you what you need. So give me a bit of feedback on that link. That'll be very useful for us. It's part of our continual improvement, of course. But now I'm just going to scan through the chats. I can see a few comments coming through. So let's see if I can pick out any questions that you may have had. So, question, is there a quick transition refresh course for previous Foundation version 3 holders to take the version 4 Foundation? Do you know what? There isn't. I think some training providers have provided a sort of a shortened version of a foundation course for those people who have done version 3, and I think that is something that we could consider. If somebody approached to say you've got a team of people, they've all done version 3 foundation, could you come in and do a lighter 4 foundation course? Then we could probably cover it off across 2 days. But the reality is, certainly on the foundation course, a lot of what we cover is new material. We introduced so those of you who have done version 3, when I talk about things like the service value system, the service value chain, the guiding principles, and the 4 dimensions of service management, which are the main 4 ITIL concepts we cover on the course, then it's all completely new. So in many ways, if you've done 3 before or not, going through the full training, I think, is kind of needed. But we can take a slightly lighter approach if there is a pool of people that are wanting us to take that particular approach. I did see somebody else post a comment. Yeah, a view on recertification. It's interesting. As I say, I can understand the desire from an industry perspective for people to continue their developmental journey in this particular area. Otherwise, things just get left behind, and we're not actually actively contributing in these areas. There are a number of different options, as I've demonstrated, that actually we can maintain our certifications by just making contributions to the industry, and it isn't just about selling exam fees, which I think the cynic would suggest that that's largely what it's down to. So yes, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see what the overall appetite is to take things forward. Somebody said, please can you clarify requirements to become an ITIL master? So let me see if I can just go back to this particular slide. So it depends what your starting point is. The headline is that you need to be a practice manager, managing professional, and strategic leader to become an ITIL master. And to achieve any of those qualifications, you need to have foundation to start off with. If you are a managing professional transition holder, then you already have this qualification, managing professional. You would then just need to do the digital and IT strategy module to become a strategic leader, because you've already boxed off the direct plan and improve. And in order to become a practice manager, well, you've already boxed off create, deliver, and support as well. So to become a practice manager, you would need to complete one of these 3-day modules or 5 of these individual practitioner module qualifications. So I'll just go back to the question, because there's an IE all modules. So you could do all 5 modules from Monitor, Support, and Fulfil on top of that, or you could do all 5 modules from any of these practice manager courses, or you could do you could do service desk and supplier management and change enablement. As long as you do 5 practitioner modules, doesn't really matter which family they're from, that would also contribute. Okay. And Darren has asked, what's the difference between the asset management extension module and its namesake in the plan, implement and control group? Where are we? Really good question. So the IT asset management practitioner one-day module brings to life the practice guide for IT asset management. That's what all of these practitioner modules do. So it focuses on broadly what is IT asset management, how does it link in with other ITIL practices, how does it fit in within the 4 dimensions of service management, and looking at practice success factors. The IT asset management module itself as a separate entity goes into this area in much more detail. So it will incorporate supporting practices in depth. Looking at more specific advice and guidance overall. So more detail is really the answer to the question. So next question, we need create delivery support to be able to do practice management questions. Okay, so just might be slightly misleading in terms of how I've described it. Create, deliver and support is not a prerequisite to go on and do these practice manager or practitioner qualifications. And I know that's kind of how I've described it, and that's not deliberate, so apologies for that. It's just that it's in order to become a practice manager, you need to have foundation as a prerequisite for any of the courses, create, deliver and support, and then alongside that, 5 practitioner modules or one of the 3-day modules overall. So this create, deliver and support isn't a prerequisite to go on and do any of the practitioner modules or the 3-day combined practitioner modules. It's just there to go alongside those in order to become a practice manager. So I hope that clarifies. So to do any of the practice manager courses, you just need to have a foundation certificate. So good question. What is the implication on sitting your ITIL exam this month or next month in relation to the expiration date? So this is one that I've absolutely clarified with PeopleCert. If your ITIL qualification expires, then it's just listed as expired. You can still use that qualification as the means to go on and do an advanced module. So if your qualification expires at the end of the month and your options remain the same, you can go and sit that same exam again. You can go on and do an advanced module and use your expired qualification as the means to meet the prerequisites to do that. Okay, so hopefully that answers the question. So in some ways, it doesn't really make that much of a difference, because initially I was concerned that once it's expired, it no longer exists. But because there is an allowance for you to use an expired qualification to contribute towards the advanced modules, then in some ways the pressure is off, I would perhaps suggest. Lots of people thanking me. Some need to drop off for another call. The questions seem to have dried up, so I'll just sort of wrap up and thank you all for attending. Yes, I'll be sharing the slides, sharing a copy of this recording, and yeah, please keep in touch with me. Thank you for your attendance today. Thank you for your questions. It also it helps, because if you've asked a question, then somebody else is thinking it as well. Yep, I've overrun slightly, so I'm going to let you all go. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time today, and hopefully we'll see you on some of our events moving forwards. All right, thank you very much. Take care. Have a good day.